Hello and welcome all of you to lecture number 16 of operating system. I'm Sonal Saxena and again I'm back with some more important concept of operating system here. So today, in continuation with lecture number 15, I'm going to cover up what exactly is non-contiguous memory allocation. In the last lecture, we have seen the contiguous memory allocation, which is a scheme used by operating system for allocating the space to the processes. And in contiguous memory allocation, we have seen two different partitioning scheme, that is fixed partitioning scheme and variable partitioning scheme, wherein different strategies are used to allocate space to processes. And within that, we have already seen two major issues that exist when contiguous memory allocation is done. That was of internal fragmentation and external fragmentation. Together with that, we have seen few algorithms which are used to allocate space into the contiguous memory allocation. The major algorithms that we have seen in the last lecture was uh, first fit algorithm, best fit algorithm, worst fit algorithm, next fit algorithm, and quick fit algorithm. So these five algorithms we have seen that how they help out in allocating the space effectively. Few of them are not that much efficient which we can use, but otherwise few of them are such kind of algorithms like best fit algorithm or the quick fit algorithm. They are one of the algorithms which are considered to be very efficient while you use them for allocating the memory space. So with that lecture and with that particular scheme of contiguous memory allocation, we have seen an important flaw that was of external fragmentation and internal fragmentation, where you have seen that in any cases there is a problem of memory wastage, and it creates holes in the memory. What are holes? What are memory holes? Memory holes are those unused memory spaces which cannot be used by any process further, because the sizes of the processes might vary. It could be a possibility that if a memory hole is suiting the capacity of a particular process, it can be allocated. But maximum time, most of the time, this happens that a particular space cannot be allocated to a particular process just because of the memory insufficiency. So this is a major flaw that we get when we do contiguous memory allocation. So to just overcome such kind of situation, we have come up with a different kind of allocation which is called non-contiguous. And you can see it we have seen in the data structures that there is a linear data structure and there is a non-linear data structure, and you already knew the difference. When we talk about contiguous memory allocation, it means that the data are stored in a line, they are stored in a sequence. But when we talk about non-linear data or non-contiguous data, that means the sequence of the data will not be same. It will not be aligned, it will not be in a sequence, like it will not be in a consecutive manner 1 2 3 4 or 8 9 10 11. It will not be like that. It would be not in non-contiguous. Wherever the memory is available, wherever the process or the operating system will get the memory, it will try to accommodate that memory space to you. So it is not always possible to give you memory in a consecutive manner. However, there is a pointer which will always point to the next data which is available at some particular memory location. So this is exactly the same thing that we are going to do in the second part of this memory allocation, which is called non-contiguous memory allocation. And in non-contiguous memory allocation as well, we are going to see the broad concept of this allocation is that we are not going to allocate the process a sequential space. We'll be giving it a space wherever it is possible in the memory, so as to overcome the fragmentation part, so as to overcome the external fragmentation which occurs in the contiguous memory allocation. So with this, let us start our process here, and let me just cover up the important concept here in non-contiguous memory. So in today's lecture, these are the objectives which we are going to understand: concept of non-contiguous memory, then paging scheme, and the segmentation. However, let me tell you that may be possible that it won't be possible to cover up segmentation today in this lecture. So I am going to cover up this segmentation part in tomorrow's lecture as well. Okay, so till today, and in this particular lecture, I'm going to cover up the contiguous memories concept, and we'll be seeing what is paging and how it is executed inside operating system. So this is our main topic for today's lecture. Now let's come over to the reason why non-contiguous memory allocation is required for the operating system instead of using the contiguous memory. So here you can see that in contiguous memory allocation, a process cannot span a different memory location, but but here we can divide the process and allocate different parts of memory to it. As I told you, it is one and the same thing. It is one and the same difference that we are seeing. That see, in contiguous memory allocation, we need to allocate the memory location which are consecutive in manner to all the processes. But when we talk about non-contiguous memory allocations, this is not possible. In non-contiguous, if you are expecting that your process will get a consecutive space to be allocated, so that won't be possible. Maybe sometimes it can happen if the memory is available, but not always it is the case. Your process will be divided and your process will be stored as a parts in different memory locations. So this is one point why non-contiguous memory is used. Second important reason why non-contiguous memory should be used or it is in use is that the major problem or the major flaw which the contiguous memory allocation felt was of the external fragmentation, which is present in abundance in your continuous memory allocation. So to remove this concept, we need to have a non-contiguous memory allocation. And besides this, in this non-contiguous memory allocation, we are allowed to store the part of the process. Even the parts of the process can be stored at different locations. So this exactly makes the need of non-contiguous memory allocation. Now, when we talk about, just like in contiguous memory allocation, the techniques that were used was the fixed technique, fixed allocation, and the variable allocations. In a similar manner, here in non-contiguous memory allocation, we have two different techniques which we can use. Now, what are these techniques? Not even two, there are three different techniques which we can use, and gradually I'm going to cover up all these concepts with you. So first, an important technique, and it is very common, this is called paging technique. So in non-contiguous memory, we can use a paging technique to store the processes or to allocate the space to the process. Second important technique that we can use is of segmentation. We can even use segmentation part. And the third important concept that we can use is a virtual memory paging, or it is called demand paging. So these are the three important techniques that we can use for non-contiguous memory allocation of a process. Now, let us understand what exactly is paging. So, as I have told you that paging is one of the technique of non-contiguous memory allocation. So obviously it is a memory management scheme. Whatever we are seeing, like the contiguous memory allocation or the non-contiguous memory allocation, all of them are under the class of memory management schemes. And they, this particularly when we talk about paging, it actually removes or it actually skips the need of contiguous allocation of physical memory. Now, this scheme actually, permits the physical address space of a process to be non-contiguous. Physical address, we are not talking about logical address which is generated by CPU. We are, talking about the actual address or the physical address space of the process, which can be, at different memory locations. So when we talk about paging, the second important point here is that paging is considered to be a fixed partitioning scheme. Yes, however, it belongs to non-contiguous memory allocation, but still it is a fixed memory partitioning scheme. Now, in paging, when we talk about paging, especially, we have a secondary memory and a main memory. So both of them, whenever you are using a paging concept, what will happen that your both the memories, your main memory and your disk memory or the secondary memory will be divided into equal fixed size partitions, right? Now, how come? Like we are dividing our main memory in equal partitions. Similarly, what we are going to do is we are dividing our secondary memory as well with equal size partitions. So now understand an important concept. You have to remember this concept because if you will intermingle or if you exchange the words while working with them, you'll get confused and maybe possible that you are ending up with the wrong numericals or ending up with the wrong answers. So this has to be memorized. Do remember that, as I told you, in paging, we are going to partition both the memories, the secondary memory and the main memory. So here you have to remember that the partitions of the secondary memory are called as pages. Okay, do remember the partitions of the secondary memory. When you are, partitioning the secondary memory, that partition is called page, and each page is of fixed size and almost equal size. And similarly, the partitions that you are doing in the main memory, in the random access memory, are called frames. Even they are of equal sizes. So here remember that your pages are equals to frames. Whatever sized partition you are doing in the secondary memory, it is always equals to uh, the partitions that we are doing in the main memory. Now, each process, let's say some process comes and it is requesting some space inside your memory. How would you do that? Now, each process is divided into parts. We are going to divide a process also. There is a process and we are going to divide by modules. Let's say 4 module in one partition, 2 modules in one partition, like that. So every process is divided into parts where size of each part is same as page size. So how are you going to do that? Let us assume that in the secondary memory, what I have done is the partitions of the secondary memory are called pages, right? Let's say that I have partitioned the secondary memory with 2 bytes of pages each. The partition is of 2 bytes. That means each page is of 2 bytes. So here, when you are dividing the process, what you have to do is you have to divide your process into 2 bytes parts, right? So do remember that whatever is the size of your page, it should be the same size of the partition of a process. So the size of the last part may be less than the page size. Obviously it could happen. See, it is not always possible that let's say if your page is of let's say 2 bytes, so it is not always possible that even the process will be of it can be equally divided in 2 pages. Now let me tell you. Let's say that I have partitioned my secondary memory into 2 bytes pages each, right? Two bytes partition, which we are calling as a act as page. Okay. Now, as I told you that the parts of the process has to be divided into the partitions which should be equal to the pages. So that means I have to divide my process into two bytes each, two bytes partition, right? Now let us assume that I have one process which is of total 7 bytes. Let's say that it is of 7 bytes. Now what I have to do is, because the page size is of 2 bytes, I need to divide my page into two bytes partition. So how would I do that? 2 bytes for one partition, again 2 bytes for second partition, again 2 bytes for the third partition. So this makes total 6 bytes. Now the remaining 1 byte will be stored in the fourth page. But let me tell you, because the page is of 2 bytes and I am only storing 1 byte, so 1 byte will be wasted in this page. So it is not at all a problem. The size of the last part, it could remain less than the page size. It could be a possibility because we don't, assure that the size of the process will always be equal to the page. No, it could take any number of pages, and the last part can always remain, unused. So this is the concept that we are using here, right? Now, the pages of the process are stored in the frames of the main memory depending upon their availability. Now, what will happen? See, as I have told you that what we are doing is we are, partitioning our secondary memory, and we are calling it as pages. Okay. Now, this is just the process that we are doing inside the secondary memory. But a process is there because it wants to get executed. So this is a concept that I'm telling you since we have started with this memory management scheme. I have told you this thing, that a process cannot be executed inside a secondary memory. Now, for a process to get executed, it should always come up in the main memory. It should always get loaded in the main memory. So right now, that whatever we have talked about is all about the secondary memory. So what will happen when I want to, run a process and I want to execute that process? So at that time, I need to load the pages in the main memory. So how would I do that? Now comes the picture of main memory. I have told you this thing, that even in paging, the main memory is also divided into equal partitions. Now, these partitions in main memory are called frames. So, what will happen? Earlier, I have told you this concept that the size of the frame, the size of the partitions of the main memory should always be equal to the pages, the size or the partitions of the secondary memory. So they should be equal. So, whenever you want to execute a process, what will happen? The pages of a process which we are storing in the secondary memory, which are saved in your secondary memory, they will be loaded inside the frames because they are of equal size. So there will be no, contradictions among them. So as and when I require, and according to the availability, because see, there is again a simple problem that your main memory is very less in size in comparison to secondary memory. Your main memory is not that much large. So here, whenever you want to run a process, you first of all need to check out that whether there is an availability of frames or not. If the frames are available, only then you can load the pages inside the frames. So there is no, there is no problem in loading the pages. Why? Because frames are of equal size. The only problem that is existing here is the availability of the frames, because random access memory is very less, and every time there is some process which is running inside the random access memory, because CPU cannot sit idle. So here the major thing that is there is the availability. So we need to wait for the availability. Whenever there is a chance of free memory space, then only that will be loaded and executed. Now, I hope this one is clear to you, that how the pages are created, how they are loaded, how the process is broken down into some equal size partitions, and how they are loaded on the basis of the availability of the process inside the main memory in the frames. Now consider this example. I'll just show you how we are doing that. Now consider a process which is divided into 4 pages. I am considering a process. Let's say P is a process. And as I told you, that even the process has to be broken down into few partitions which we call pages, and which we are going to store in the secondary memory. So here what we have done is, I have partitioned my process into 4 different partition: P0, P1, P2, and P3, and I'm calling it as page, right? Now, depending upon the availability, these pages may be stored in the memory frames in a non-contiguous fashion, right? What we are doing, depending on the availability. If there is an available memory inside your main memory, right? So how would we do that? I am going to store, let's say I want to execute this process. So what will I do? On the basis of the availability of the space, I am going to store these individual pages like P0, P1, P2, P3 in the memory frames, in the main memory partition, which we are calling frames. So one important thing is, on the availability, they will be stored, they will be loaded inside the main memory in the frames exactly, right? And second important part is, because we are using non-contiguous memory allocation, that is why there is no chance that these all processes will be stored in a contiguous manner, in a sequential manner. Maybe that could be a possibility if the space is available in a continuous manner, but still these processes will be stored at different memory locations at different frames. Not possible that the frames are always in a sequence manner. Okay, so let us see how we are doing that. See, now this is a main memory. Okay, now the partitions that you are seeing in this main memory are called frames. As I have told you, the partitions of the main memory are called frames. So here you can see these all are the partitions. We are just assuming 4 partitions. It is not the case that only 4 partitions will be there. There will be so many partitions of your random access memory, but because we need to just represent our process here, that is why I have shown only these 4 partitions. So here you can see these 4 partitions, right? And now see that the processes, the partitions of the processes are not in a sequential manner. If it would have been sequential, it would have been written like P0, P1, P2, and P3. But here you see they are, they are stored in a random manner. First you are storing P1, then P3, then P0, and then P2, and even they are not in a sequence. Maybe the address of P1 could be anything, P3 is stored somewhere at the other address, P0 is at other address, and P2 is similar to that. So here you should understand that the main memory has equal size frame as per your pages, but the storing is not sequential in nature. Okay, it could be like anything. Now, how this process is going on, because as we have as we have seen in the previous allocations, also in previous contiguous memory allocation, that CPU always generates a logical address. That how come this logical address, because logical address is not the actual address of your process. It doesn't give you the actual address. Using logical address, you cannot reach out for a particular process which is residing in your secondary memory. So how would I know the actual address? So actual address means the physical address. So how would I know that? I need to translate my logical address into the physical address. So how would I do that? Let's see this. Now, we have seen this thing that CPU will always generate a logical address. CPU is meant for generating logical address, right? Now, a physical address is needed to access the main memory. We have seen this thing that logical address is not meant for accessing, right? If you want to access the main memory, if you want to go to a particular process which is loaded in the main memory, you need to have the physical address of it. So how would we do that? These are the following steps which are used to translate the logical address into physical address. So step number one says that CPU generates a logical address which consists of two parts. Now understand this thing, that whenever CPU is generating a logical address of a process, that will have the address, the logical address will have two things. One is the page number, and second is the page offset. Now understand, just with the help of a layman example, I'm just going to explain this concept to you. What is page number and what is page offset? Say you are reading a book, okay, and you want to understand a particular concept into it, right? You are having, let's say you are reading operating system book, you are referring operating system book, and you want to read about, let's say, physical addresses, okay. Now how will you do that? How will you logically um, generate the address? How will you reach out to that particular topic? Because operating system is a vast topic and it has got lot many concepts into it. Lot many topics will be there inside your book. How would you precisely reach out for a particular topic like physical address? How would you do that? Now let's say I am the the author of the book, and if you are asking me that I need to understand about physical address in this particular book, please let me know what is the exact address of this topic. So I would give you two things. One, I would give you the page number, that in this book at particular page, let's say, or at page number 80, you will find this topic, and on page number 80, the third paragraph is of physical address. So here you understand the logical address consists of two things, the page number. So here when we talk about the example of book, page number is 80. So you have been given page number 80. And in that page, because that page also consists of lot many, stuff of your process. So at what particular point you want to, execute, let's say I want to execute 10th line, or I want to execute 50th line. So that is your page offset. So here in my book example, it would be paragraph number 3. That is my page offset. So even that has got an address. So let us assume that page number is 3 and I want to execute 10th line of page number 3. So page number 3 is the number and offset is 3. Sorry, 10th line. So this is your page offset. So I guess this one is clear. So logical address will always generate these two things, the page number and the page offset. Okay. So here your page number specifies the specific page of the process from which CPU wants to read the data. So it will give you the exact address of the page which is residing in the memory. Secondly, the page offset always specifies the specific word on the page that CPU wants to read. As I have told you that page number is 6 and I want to execute 28th line. So on page number 6, 28th line is the page offset. So these are the two things which are generated. Okay, this is step number 1. Now step number 2 says for the page number generated by the CPU, whatever page number is generated by CPU, page table provides the corresponding frame number, base address of the frame where that page is stored in the main memory. So as I've told you, see, page concept is of secondary memory. Your pages will be in the secondary memory. But when you are executing that page should be in the main memory in some frame. Okay. Now the number of that frame, the address of that frame will exist in a different data structure which is called page table. Do you understand? Page table is a data structure used by paging scheme. And it will always give you the address of the frames in which your pages are stored, right? And especially what it will give is the base address of this frame, right? Like suppose my page number 6 is stored in frame number 3. So whatever is the base address of frame number 3, why base address? Because there could be lot many frames. So it is going to give you the base address of the frame where that page is stored in the main memory. So this is how the page is stored. So page table is an important data structure which is used to keep account of all the pages that at what locations and at what frame number they are stored inside your main memory. Now what will happen in third step? The frame number combined with the page offset forms the required physical address. Now understand this thing. The frame number, whatever, like let's say my page number 6 is stored in frame number 3. So this 3 with page offset, like at page number 6, I want to execute 28th line. So frame number 3 plus 28th offset is my physical address. So what will I do? I am going to reach out for frame number 3, and at frame number 3 I want to execute 28th line. So that 28th line will be my page offset. This is how I have converted my logical address into physical address. Okay. Now the frame number here specifies the specific frame where the required page is stored. I have told you this concept already. And the page offset specifies that specific word that has to be read from the page. Obviously, that particular line which you want to execute or you want to write to or you want to read from, whatever it is. So that is your page offset. Okay. Now here is the diagram which will help you out in understanding this whole concept. I guess at some point of time maybe you will get confused, but there is no point of confusion here. It is very clear. We have seen. Now let us see this example of translation. What is happening here? See, at this side you are seeing left hand side CPU. CPU is meant to generate your logical address. Okay, so this is your logical address you are seeing with the red mark. This is logical address, and here you see this logical address is divided into two parts. One is the page number. It will tell you that in the secondary memory what is the page number of your process and at what particular line you want to read it, right? So page number and page offset. Page number can be 6, 7, 5, whatever it could be, and offset is the line of code which you want to execute, right? So this is your page logical address. Now as I have told you, every page, do remember the paging scheme works out with the help of a data structure which is called page table, right? So here what we have done is this page table resides in a register which is called page table base register. See this in the left hand side below CPU. It is PTBR. You are seeing this PTBR? PTBR is page table base register. So it is the one which is holding the the information of individual page. For every page there is a page table base register. So what will happen? This page table register is maintained like this. See here, there will be a page, right? And these particular processes, let's say I'm talking about process number 1. So this process number 1 will be partitioned into 4 equal parts. Here are the parts of this. This is a P0, P1, P2, and P3. So this is shown here in the page table. So the page table will be storing these values, and here you see this page table is holding the frame number. So here you understand that, let's say that this is a whole process. This is whole process which is partitioned into 4 equal parts: P0, P1, P2, and P3. And here it is written inside P1, it is written F. This is showing that P1 is stored at this particular frame number. So F would be some kind of a number. Let's say if it is written 14. So that means your process, the second partition of your process, that is P1, is stored at frame number 14. So here your address will be generated, your physical address will be generated. How come? It will tell you the frame number, like P1 is stored at this particular frame number. So I'll take the frame number plus I'll take the same offset which is generated by the by the CPU as in the logical address that was offset. So I'm going to add up two things. I'm going to add up the second frame number, whatever is the frame number of my process, together with the offset. So this makes it a physical address. So have you seen how we have quickly and smoothly generated the physical address out of logical address? It is very simple. You are going to store your page with the help of a page table, and every partition of your process, every page of your process will be assigned a frame number in which it is shown that at what memory location your particular process partition is staying in the main memory, at what frame. So the frame numbers, as similar to this, P0 will have a frame number, P2 will have it, P3 will have it. So in the very same manner, we'll have the frame number and we are going to add the offset to it. So this will give you the actual address of your process where it is residing in the main memory. So here you see this is a main memory. This is the right hand side, you can see here. So it is giving you F. So you can see this, that P1 is stored at this particular location here in the main memory. So this is how we have reached out for the physical memory, or for the actual address of a particular process inside the main memory. So its translation is as much simple as that. Okay, I hope this one is clear to you. You can see this diagram. So I hope this one is clear to you. Let us move forward. Now, as I have told you, there is a hardware support for paging. What is hardware support? Each operating system has its own method for storing page table. Obviously, there are different types of operating system. Like we have Linux, we have MS-DOS, we have iOS operating system, we have Android. There are different operating system, and they all have their individual methods for storing these page tables, which we have talked about, the data structures which are used to hold the information of every page. Okay. Now, most operating systems allocate a page table for each process. I have told you this thing. For every process, there is a page table, right? And do remember, whenever a process is created, because a process has its own life cycle, a process doesn't remain in your memory for a permanent time, for a lifelong time. It will be created whenever it is required, and it will get demolished whenever it is done with the execution. So as the data structure page table. The page table of a process will be created when the process is created. And as soon as your process will get terminated, the page table also get terminated. It will also get demolished, right? So a pointer to the page table is stored with other register values in the process control block. I have told you a process control block is a data structure again, which is used to hold all the information regarding a process. So even this page table, pointer to this page table, is stored in the register of process control block. Now, when the dispatcher is told to start a process, it must reload the user registers and define the correct hardware page table values from the stored user page table. So this is a point that, for every process, the correct entry of its address should be there in the page table. And all these informations are stored in the register itself. Now, how do we implement the page table? Now, generally, the page table is kept in main memory. As I have told you, the page table is always kept in the main memory. It never resides in the secondary memory, because this is of no use actually. It is always used when you want to execute your process. So execution means the main memory. So even the page table is residing in your main memory. Now, the PTBR, the page table base register, it always points to the page table, and the page table length register, PRLR, indicates the size of the page table. So again, there is a different type of register which we call page table length register. It is meant to only hold the size of the page table. Now, in such kind of scheme, every data requires two memory accesses, one for the page table and one for the instruction or the data, right? Now, the two memory access problem, there is a problem. Obviously, one access I need for the page table and one I need for the data itself. So, to solve this kind of problem, we use a special kind of fast lookup hardware cache memory, which is called associative memory, or हम उसको कहते हैं translation look aside buffers, or the TLBs. Now, what is TLB? Understand that the TLB is an associative and high speed memory. This is another name which we give to cache memory. I have told you the hierarchy of the memory. We have seen cache memory, secondary, primary. So TLB is nothing but a cache memory, which is a very small memory and very expensive and speedy memory it is. Okay. Now, each entry in this TLB will always consist of two parts. One is the key or the tag, and one is the value part, right? Key and the value. Like if you have a locker, and inside, whenever you open that locker, whatever things are there inside your locker, that is the value. So here it consists of a key and a value. Now TLB is used with page tables in such ways. How? Now the TLB contains only a few of the page table entries. It will not contain all the page table entries. A few page table entries will be there. Now when a logical address is generated by the CPU, its page number is presented to the TLB. So whatever logical address it is, CPU is generating, the page number is always given to the TLB. Now, if the page number is found, which we call the TLB hit, it is called hit if the page number exists, because you see there could be sometimes a case where you are going to access a page which has already been expired, a process which is already terminated, and still you are accessing that page. So in that case, maybe you won't find that page. But if you find that page inside your memory, it is known as TLB hit. Okay. And if that page is found in the memory, only in that case, its frame number is generated immediately and it is used to access the memory. So it takes only one memory access at that time. Now, if the page number is not in the TLB, what do we call it? If let's say the page has already expired, that will be known as a TLB miss. Okay. Now, a memory reference to the page table must be made in this case, right? Now, when the frame number is obtained, we can use it to access the memory. Again, it takes two memory accesses. Now, in addition to this, it stores the page number and the frame number to the TLB so that they will be found quickly on the next reference. So whenever next time you want it, like it is the same case of the cache memory. The cache memory is actually meant for this. It always holds a copy of the previously accessed data. So it is the same thing. It will hold the data itself. Now, if the TLB is already full of entries, let's say your translation look aside buffer is already full of the entries, the operating system must select one for the replacement by using replacement algorithm. So let us assume now your TLB is already full and now you want to execute another process. So what will happen? Your TLB should be emptied in this case. So this is the work of your operating system to select which entry should be replaced with the new entry. So operating system in this case takes help of this replacement algorithm. There are various replacement algorithms. So operating system has the control of using this replacement algorithm to replace one of the previously stored entries and replace it with the new one which I want to execute. So this is the case that we can use. Now here you can see the example here. See this diagram. CPU is generating logical address. Okay, now page number, it is given here as we are making a TLB. So in translation look aside buffer, for every page there is a frame number, right? And if the page exists, there will be a TLB hit. The page exists, then there will be a TLB hit, and the page number will be storing the frame of it. So this frame will be given and the offset will be given. So it will, it will create the physical address. But let's say if there is a, TLB miss, there is no, page exists. So in that case, I'll call it a TLB hit. So I can't find, the frame number exactly. So the percentage of time that a particular page number is found in the TLB, as I have told you, it is called the hit ratio. And here the effective access time, which we call EAT, is obtained as follows. This is the formula of the EAT, effective access time, how much time it used for accessing. So it is given by HR, that is hit ratio, into TLBAT, that is TLB access time, right? It is given by this hit ratio multiplied by TLBAT, that is TLB access time, plus memory access time. Then again addition with this MR, which is missed ratio, multiplied by TLB access time plus 2 into memory access time. So you need to memorize this formula so as to get the effective access time for each page, what time it has taken, how much time it has taken. However, it is very low because it is a speedy memory. Okay, so just understand, you can write it down, you can just note this down, the the formula, which will help you out in solving the numericals. Now, lastly, we are coming over to the advantages and disadvantages part of paging scheme. So the advantages of paging are, it allows to store part of a single process in non-contiguous fashion, which omits the problem of external fragmentation. This is the major advantage of paging. This is actually the reason why we have come up with such kind of a solution, which is called paging. So paging is actually paging concept is actually evolved just because of this drawback, that external fragmentation is very high using contiguous memory. Now, when we talk about the disadvantages, it is actually that it suffers from internal fragmentation. Internal fragmentation is always there. Where, what is internal fragmentation? See, as I have told you that every process will be partitioned into equal size of pages, right? As I've told you, I've given you one example of 7-byte process. 7 byte is the size of the process, and I'm going to store it into 2 bytes partition of pages. So as I've told you that, see, the last page will hold only 1 byte of memory, and the total size of it is 2 bytes. So here 1 byte of memory will be totally wasted because you cannot store another process into it. So this is basically internal fragmentation. So it is overcoming external fragmentation, but the internal fragmentation problem still exists in your system, right? Now, there is a problem of overhead also, which is used, which will exist for maintaining a page table for each process. And the time taken to fetch the instruction, it always increases, since there are always 2 memory access which are required. So these are the major disadvantages of the paging scheme. So I hope with this lecture you have understood the paging scheme of the operating system in a very well manner. In the coming lectures, I am going to share a few examples and numericals with you of this particular paging scheme, and then we'll start with the segmentation part, which is the second scheme of non-contiguous memory allocation. So now I'm just closing this presentation, and I'm coming over to the MCQ part to just test out the skills that you have gained with this lecture. So let me quickly share the MCQs with all of you so that you can test yourself. So stay tuned with me. So I'm going to quickly share the MCQs with you. Please test yourself to see whatever you have learned in this paging scheme. So these are the question sets. So physical memory is broken into fixed sized blocks, which is called the frames, the pages, the backing store, or none of the above. So it is very easy to answer. We have just seen all these things. Secondly, second question says, logical memory is broken into blocks of the same size. Logical memory is broken into blocks of the same size, which we call the frames, the pages, the backing store, or none of the above. The third question says, every address generated by the CPU is divided into 2 parts. What is that? We have seen in the diagram itself, I've told you this concept. It is a frame bit and page number and page offset and frame bit, frame offset and page offset. Very quickly you can answer it. It is very easy. I hope you have answered it correctly because it is very easy. Now, these are the next three questions. The dash is used as an index into the page table. The frame bit, the page number, the page offset, and the frame offset, which is used as the index into the page table. So you might be knowing it quickly, you can answer it. The fifth question says the dash table contains the base address of each page in the physical memory. Is it the process table, the memory table, the page table, or the frame table? And the next question, sixth question says the size of a page table or the page is typically varied, power of 2, power of 4, or none of the above. So you might be able to answer it quickly. We have seen the example as well. Now let me take you to the next set of questions. Question number 7, 8, and 9. If the size of logical address space is 2 to the power of m and the page size is 2 to the power of n addressing units, then the high order dash bits of a logical address designate the page number and the dash low order bits designate the page offset. So what is that? You might be able to answer it. And with paging, there is no dash fragmentation. Which type of fragmentation doesn't occur? Is it external or is it internal? Need to answer this. And question number 9 says the operating system maintains a dash table that keeps track of how many frames have been allocated, how many are there, and how many are available. So out of this four, what do you think? What is the correct answer? Just try to answer quickly. Now let me take you to the last question, that is question number 10. So paging increases the dash time. What time does paging increase? Is it the waiting time? Is it the execution time? Is it context switch or all of the above mentioned? So quickly try to answer this. So I hope you were able to answer all these questions very correctly. So this is all about the paging scheme, and as I have told you that in the coming lecture, I'll be discussing some of the important crucial concepts related to paging also that are numerical based, and we are going to see one or two numericals on the basis of the paging part. I'm going to cover up the numerical part of the paging so as to explain you how you are going to solve the numericals which are related to paging. And then I am going to start up with the second non-contiguous allocation scheme, which is segmentation. So we are going to see how segmentation works out, and then we'll see other concepts like demand paging and paging with segmentation concepts as well. So stay tuned with me with these lecture series of operating system. Keep on learning, and if you find any kind of problem, if you have any queries, please comment in the comment section, and I'll be very happy to answer all these questions. I'll make my best efforts to just answer your questions. Thank you so much and stay tuned.